This is APE-FACE, the AtariAge podcast.
The printer buffer was just a huge hit. It blew me away. Wow, look, it'll take it all in 10 or 20 seconds and just sit there and spool it out to the printer.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-Bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Richard Taylor was an employee of Digital Devices Corporation. DDC built a number of adapters for the Atari 8-bit computers. Its most well-known product was probably APE-FACE, an inexpensive $90 device that connected the Atari's SIO port to standard parallel printers. The company's other products included UPRINT, a printing buffer, and the Ape-Link Serial Peripheral Input-Output expansion cable. Richard's job? He said in an AtariAge message board, "I was the warranty repair department, shipping department, prototype builder, janitor, etc. while I was going to Georgia Tech in 1984 and 1985. This interview took place on November 14th, 2017.
I was your typical little geek and a goober. Always get anything out of a trash pile I could and take it apart and see if I could fix it or make it better. Really got into computers. I'm 51 years old now. So I got my first computer, an Atari 400, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 years old, somewhere around there, with my yard mowing and farm working money. And loved it. Just absolutely loved it. Wrote all kinds of cool little programs. Didn't have permanent storage, so I had to write them down on a piece of paper before I turned the computer off.
What kind of programs did you write?
Just anything and everything. I remember one of the coolest ones was I made a sine wave. It plotted a sine wave on the screen and made the sound change with it. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
Cool.
Made the colors change with it too as it went up and down. Just playing around. Just had a thirst for knowledge, and it was something that computers they were totally new back then. And that little 400 was awesome. But like I say, couldn't afford any of the accessories, the cassette tape interface. So as soon as I turned it off, I lost my programs. And went in. That was through high school. I didn't. There weren't programming classes or anything in high school at the time, and wound up going to Georgia Tech, which was a miracle. Actually failed 10th grade in high school. I had a little too much fun, but wound up getting into Georgia Tech, and that's kind of how I came about digital devices. I'll come back to that, but went through Tech, electrical engineering degree, just a bachelor's. Took me 8 years, paid my way as I went, and got into industrial automation, power systems, generation, a little bit of everything. So I do industrial automation today, PLCs, HMI sensors, safety, power, you name it. Get into a little bit of everything. Jack of all trades, master of none. One of those weirdos that I love what I do. I'm working right now at my house. I'm sitting in front of my computer right now, writing a program, doing some motion, doing my first servo system, and just loving it. Doing some really cool stuff. But just always had a craving for knowledge. Love engineering, anything new. Want to get it and learn all I can about it. And that's really how I got into computers.
Nice.
So that's about me. Any questions about my past or anything?
No, that's we've set up the story. So how did you get involved with the digital devices folks?
So yeah, it's pretty funny.
You said it was headquartered on the campus. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'll come in. I'll get into that. So Charles Frazier, Charlie, was the son of my mother and father's best friend. Actually, his mother and stepfather. They were my parents' best friends. They lived up here in Atlanta. So I grew up knowing Charlie since I can remember. We'd always go to their lake house, and just seemed like we were always with him. And Charlie had a friend, Paul Nodwell, who was going to Georgia Tech at the time. I think Charlie was going to Georgia State studying business. And I don't know exactly how they got together, but they got together and decided. I guess Paul came up with the idea that there was a need for a printer interface for Atari computers that didn't cost whatever the Atari interface was, like $250 or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Hey, Charles, we can build this thing really inexpensive. Probably sell a lot of them." So they started the company actually in Charlie's basement. And I remember before, and so he knew I was going to start going to Tech in the summer of 1984. And I remember going down to their basement and spread out on the pool table were drawings, and there's electronics all around. They actually had a computer, they were doing work on, and I just loved it. And he offered me a job to come work for him. So by the time I actually started Tech, Georgia Tech had a building called the Advanced Technology Development Center. Anybody listening to this will know about it, but if they're familiar with Tech's, right there on 10th Street. And they had grants. So I think they got the building. It might have been even for free, that they would offer out, suites to startup technology companies. And so by the time I had started, they were already in that building. So it was right there on campus. And I actually started there the day before I actually took my first class. And I could just walk over from my dorm room. They gave me a key, come and go as I please. I'd get done with classes and go over there and work till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. And that's how it all got started. Basically, I started out really warranty repair department. I built up some prototypes. Never really did any programming. Always wanted to, but I was just too young and green. Incredible opportunity. I learned how to use an oscilloscope, learned how to use a voltmeter, learn how to solder, do circuit board repair. It was just awesome. And I just ate it up, and it paid well too. Mm-hmm. And just had the freedom to come and go as I pleased. Started out real small, just the single APE-FACE, which everybody is real familiar with. And they just killed the market. I think they sold the thing for like $90. And they just couldn't make them fast enough.
Yeah, because with the official Atari one, you needed the unit, you needed a couple of cables, and this APE-FACE was just plugged in between the Atari and the printer, and you were done, right?
Absolutely, and it worked great.
Yeah.
So after the APE-FACE was taken off, they were hiring more people. Trying to remember how they may have had 10 employees at one time. Met a very good friend there. He was in sales. We wound up being best friends. And, it was just, you look back on it, you look at like Apple, starting out in their garage, and, you look back on that, and it was the same kind of atmosphere. We had a blast. We always get going out after work, and drinking beer and eating chicken wings. It was just a real laid-back environment. So they later, I think the next product was the printer buffer. And if you remember, you work with 8-bit computers, you know what it's like, waiting 20 minutes for your document to print out. Right. And the printer buffer was just a huge hit. It blew me away. Wow, look, it'll take it all in 10 or 20 seconds and just sit there and spool it out to the printer. So that was the next product. And then they got into Apple. They actually had an Apple Apple printer interface, which was not a real big hit, and the UPRINT, which was a printer interface for Atari that had a printer buffer built into it, and it had a second port so you could daisy chain your other Atari devices on it. So one of the neatest things, you remember the old Apple Macintosh, the original little cube? Yeah. They had bought an Apple Macintosh. Had a 24-pin printer, it could do true type fonts and everything. So we had one of those to play with, and which I just thought was awesome. I am a Windows man, by the way, but that was an awesome computer. I still say it's the only way I passed literature classes because I could do fancy fonts on my papers.
Style over substance in the papers?
Exactly. Yeah. I do fancy graphics, on the cover sheet, like I say, true type font, compared to 8-bit fonts is just night and day difference. But one neat story, getting nostalgic about how much things have changed. We actually had a modem. They were looking at making a modem, so they bought a couple modems. And this is back when, you had a few bulletin boards around that you could dial into. But the very first quarter that Georgia Tech offered online registration for classes, I actually went up to the office late one night, I'll never forget it, and dialed into the Georgia Tech campus computer at 300 baud. I don't know if you've ever seen a 300 baud modem scroll across the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tick, 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 tick.
It's as fast as you can read. Who would need faster? It's
Exactly, yeah. Why does it need to be any faster than that? So I actually registered online at Georgia Tech. And if you've been through college registration back in the old days with punch cards and stuff, it could be an 8-hour ordeal. It was horrible. So, I did that, and I look back on that all the time. And, now, of course, the kids, they just get on the internet and they take some 10 minutes to go register for their classes. But, seeing how that started was pretty awesome. So they actually, one thing that broke my heart, which is very typical nowadays, it's amazing the trend, they started cutting costs, trying to reduce the cost of the manufacturing. And they started out, all the products were built down in Noonan, Georgia at a little company. They moved it all to Mexico, which was heartbreaking. I really did not like seeing that, but, from a business standpoint, it just made sense. And I see that today all the time.
Yeah. Hey, before we forget, how many, what was the output? I mean, how many hundreds or thousands of these things were they making?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay.
I never knew. Back then I did, it was 30 years ago, 35 years ago. I have no idea how many total units they actually ever sold.
Fair enough.
So, it was interesting to watch the progression of the products. Some guys out there, I go through the AtariAge sites, stuff like that, and see how much people love these things. The original boards actually had, they had sockets, had a separate double EEPROM, and they eventually went to, direct solder on the boards, and they wound up embedding the ROMs into the CPU. I think it was a Zilog 8601. And, they're kind of screwed. They needed to change anything at that point because they did huge runs on these things. Well, when they finally closed the company, Charlie just told me, here, just go throw all that stuff in the dumpster. I said, well, can I throw it in my car? And he said, sure, I don't care. So I did. By this time I was driving. I had a faculty parking sticker so I could drive up there. And I had got some 3,000 or 4,000 of these CPUs, circuit boards, boxes, caps, crystals, cables, everything, power supplies.
Wow.
And I wound up building printer buffers and selling them on campus. I build 10 at a time and just, printed out a nice little sign and hung them up around campus. And, man, I don't know how many of those things I sold. Sold them like $60 a piece or something. Which back then was, for a poor college student, was just a ton of money.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wound up holding on to these damn things. My wife wants to shoot me every day. She'd see them, then I'd stash them in the attic at this house, and then we'd move, and I'd stash them in the basement at that house. And still have the things today. Kind of a pack rat. Keep old stuff. 40-pin CPUs don't exist anymore. I even thought somebody might want to buy them one day and build an art, a structure out of them. I have contemplated. There have been a few people through AtariAge that I've sent some chips and stuff to. But actually, there's one site I found that everybody goes to. I've actually wanted to contact them and see if they give me just a bulk sum for everything. But it was also to help people out. I enjoy helping people. I love preserving nostalgia. I love old stuff. And I do the same at my work. I keep everything. I have people call me 20 years later. Hey, you still got that program you came out and worked on? Yeah, I got it right here. I'll email it to you. I love doing stuff like that.
Nice.
As far as everybody, I do see Charlie every once in a while. Well, when the families would get together, we'd see him. He actually lives not too far from me. It's a shame I don't get together. I looked him up a while back and found out I drive near his office every day going to work. Need to call him up and just go have lunch, Paul Nodwell disappeared. When the company closed, nobody ever heard from him again. I've tried to find him over the years off and on. When Facebook came out, I said, I'm going to see if I can find Paul. Can't find him. The other guys, my buddy, we still stay in touch a little bit, not much. But everybody else just kind of went their separate ways, and that was it. Yeah. And then 20 years later, there's a surgence, for Atari 8-bit. Everybody just loves it, and everybody wants these APE-FACEs and the printer buffers, and it's neat to see. Everything comes around.
Nice. That's great. So I was going to ask you about I found you because of some messages on the AtariAge forum. I think DropCheck was asking about how a chip worked, and then you piped up. It's like, well, here's the schematics for that part, and you posted photos of the schematics, which was incredible, and I just love that you've saved all that stuff for so long. I wonder if you've really made an effort to scan all of the documentation that you have in a more, I don't know, higher quality or just more methodical way, so that it's really been it's really archived for people to use forever.
No, I have not. Those were actually the only two documents per se that I have. They were the original sales, the blueprints, the original schematics, and trying to remember back to that day. I probably just thought, I might as well keep this, for the heck of it.
Sure.
There's no telling how much other stuff that was thrown away. It's heartbreaking to think about, where we are today and how many people would love that stuff.
Yeah.
So no, that was all I had.
Well, at least you have that much. That's
yep.
That's cool.
Don't have any of the original APE-FACE chips. I do have the P-buffer chip, which was in the printer buffer. And there's actually another one named Bigfoot, and I can't remember what it was. I'd looked it up a while back and remembered what it was, but I'm drawing a blank right now. But yeah, that DropCheck, I was able to help. I don't know if it's a he or she.
She's a she.
But I think it's a she. Uh-huh. Yeah, she makes circuit boards for different things.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. So I actually had some of the original double EPROMs. I let her borrow those to offload the original code from those.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And just sent a bunch of circuit boards and chips and caps and all kinds of stuff just to see what she can do.
Yeah.
I like to help people out.
That's awesome. So I was trying to kind of get a list before we started of all the Digital Devices products, and I felt like I must be missing that. There was APE-FACE, which I feel like was like the big seller. That was like the big.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
And then there was the printer buffer, which I don't really know what that was called.
I think it was the UPRINT, I believe, was actually the buzzword.
Okay. And then there was something called the Ape-Link Serial Peripheral Input-Output Expansion Cable, which is a mouthful.
Yeah, I think that again, some of these products were tail-end devices. And I wasn't really involved in them. I think that was it U-Link? And again, this is just two guys, sitting around drinking beer, trying to decide what to call these things. So the names changed a few times. The original APE-FACE was a gorilla with a cigar in his mouth.
Right. I think I remember those
definitely
ads.
Alcohol induced. Yeah, I can't remember. And honestly, I can't remember the name of the Apple interface. It was not a big seller. How small companies like that, the stuff like that just goes by the wayside and disappears.
Sure. So you guys were primarily an Atari shop, sounds like.
Atari and Apple. You know, they really tried to get into because that's when the the Apple IIe was out, and it was huge. We actually had a 2E. I think it was a 2E. We had one of those for testing, and it was just taking over everything at the time. So they wanted to tap into that market as well.
Sure.
And honestly, I don't really know why the company went under. Maybe it was because these products just weren't selling. APE-FACE was, they'd saturated the market. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. And actually, after having this interview with you, I'm definitely going to go call Charlie and see if he wants to have lunch.
Yeah, you should do that. And see if he wants to talk to me too. It'd be fun to get his perspective on the same thing. So
actually, I'll
yeah, cool. All right, so you mentioned you did a bunch of different jobs, and you said in your email to me you did warranty, repair, and shipping, and building prototypes, and the janitor, and just everything. So let's talk a little bit about those different things that you did. Warranty repair is always interesting. So, I mean, did people ship stuff back broken? What was typically the problem? I mean, what was the first thing you looked for?
It got to the point, when it started out, I would, like I said, learn how to use a digital multimeter and an oscilloscope, and Paul actually worked with me. He was cool. Paul, he was a true geek, man. And he taught me a lot, how to troubleshoot, looking, monitoring the digital waveforms coming in and out of the CPU, and, measuring the voltages all over the board, power supply, the crystal frequency, all of that good. I was just sucking it up, man. It was awesome. And over the years, I started realizing about 99 times out of 100, it was the CPU that was bad, the main 40-pin CPU. And I got to the point where I could, in about 30 seconds, I could diagnose the problem. And this is funny, I started out with an individual solder sucker. I don't know if you've ever sucked out a 40-pin chip out of a circuit board. It is no fun at all. And I have sucked out hundreds, if not thousands, of 40-pin chips. And I realized later a little trick. I said, you know what? I just go down and just snip all these pins off the side of the CPU, and then just take my little side cutters and grab each pin, touch it with a soldering iron, and just pull each pin out individually, one at a time. And, cut that repair time down from 30 minutes to about 5 minutes, stuff like that. But nice. it really, being a freshman, first quarter, double-E at Georgia Tech, and learning this kind of stuff hands-on, by the time I got into those classes, when I took my first, class where we used oscilloscopes, I went in immediately knowing how to, set the voltage and the time base, all that good stuff. But the warranty repair, we would actually, I'm trying to remember, I think we had a person that would take the call and get the RMA for it, and I'd fix it, test it out, and just ship it back to them. We did have a lot of failures. Must have had a lot of products out there, because we did have a pretty substantial amount of returns. The printer buffers, not a lot of failures on those. It was usually a memory chip that would go bad. And like I say, the other products, vaguely remember working on those.
Yeah.
As far as building up prototypes, I can't remember which ones specifically, but it'd be a lot of wire wrap wire, hodgepodging the circuit boards together, trying to make it work. Like I said, I was too young, too inexperienced to really do any R&D, true R&D like I would have loved to have done. But I'd watch them sitting on the old Osborne, with their Z8 simulator, watching them, and I'm asking questions, and I'm getting the concepts, of how, you raise, you buffer in the serial string, and then you raise the voltage on the leg of the memory chip, and then you write out all 8 bits, or you write out the location of the single bit, in the memory chip, and then you'd write the 1 or 0 to that one location, take the line low, write another location, write one bit, and then it just blew me away. And then, of course, got into Georgia Tech, and then when I started getting into those classes and realized, wow, this is really, really cool stuff. But I did over the year, I never really got into board level design. I was more of a macro level guy, but I could do board repair, be out on the job site at 3 a.m, something break, we take it apart and, hey, look, there's a burn resistor. Let's just go replace it. Like, what? Let's see, where else were we going on that?
I was going to ask you about prototyping, and you already did that, got there yourself. I don't think janitor, probably not a lot of stories there for me.
I kind of joke about that.
Yeah.
It was, everybody did everything.
Sure.
And shipping department, we actually had, trying to remember if I started out, I did all the shipping or it was later, but there was a long period that I did all the shipping. And that was back in the day when you had the old UPS booklet, with the carbon sheet, and you have to write out all the addresses, and the UPS guy would take that sheet and leave you the carbon for your for his pickup receipt. Very different today. You go online, you print it out, you got your label printed, you stick it on, and the driver comes up and scans the package, and then you track it every inch of the way. Yeah, it was real different back then.
Did you guys have any interaction with Atari itself?
That I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. I never asked that question. I don't know how Paul would have, learned the protocol, whether he, just sniffed it, and analyzed it and reverse engineered it. Honestly, don't know. That's what I would do today. But
I'm a little jealous, I got to say. I'm 46. You said you're 51. And I feel like, I was a kid. I was playing with the Ataris. I did a little basic programming and called BBSs and stuff. But I feel like 5 years older, and I would have been old enough to been involved with one of these companies, And I feel like it must have been an amazing experience.
Back then, 5 years was dramatic, and even more dramatic. So again, I started tech in '84. This is a great story. There were people, there were juniors who programmed punch cards at Georgia Tech. By the time I came along in '84, we had text editors, and they were CRT monitors. And you would edit your program one line at a time, no going back up. But like I said, I missed programming punch cards by just a couple of years. And I understand the concept, and it would have just been a nightmare. I mean, every card was a line of code, basically.
Yeah.
In assembly. Well, I guess it's probably Fortran. And then while I was at, I think, my second year at Tech, they got 2 full-screen editing computers where you could list out the program on the screen and actually cursor up and edit your program.
Oh, fancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there was usually, I never used one. There was usually 3 or 4 people lined up waiting to use them. And, you typically would spend an hour or two on one person, and they were that hot. And, and then next thing you know, Windows comes out and just changes everything. Or the Mac, the original Macintosh. It just changed everything. Because getting nostalgic again, I was, after DDC closed, I went to work for a small computer store named Computers Mean Business. And that was when the 286 had just come out. And if you remember back then, when you bought a computer, it did nothing. So most people would pay to have you have the store, preload the operating system and any other programs on it. But working there, I did repair and build up new computers, stuff like that. So I knew what was good and what was bad. You could see what failed every time, and I could buy everything it cost. So I built a Mitsuba. It was a Mitsuba clone, 286, running a whopping 10 megahertz.
Wow.
512K of RAM, a 40 megabyte hard drive, EGA monitor, sound card, whole 9 yards. And So I could actually, and then I used Turbo C, so I could actually write programs in my dorm room and not have to go sit down in the cluster and program under the fluorescent lights with everybody else. And I put it on my, gosh, what were they then back then? 360K floppies, and I could take it into the Unix system and upload it. I forgot all the details. That was close, but the ability to do that in my dorm room was pretty darn cool.
Yeah, nice.
And then, like you say, you look at it. I go to campus now, and there's just clusters of Macs everywhere you look. And even more nostalgia. We took a class as a literature class, and the book was Megatrends by John Nesbitt. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Have not read it.
He predicted the information superhighway. So this was before the internet was popular. And he predicted this. I'm not a big literature guy, but I really enjoyed that class. I think the whole class was based on that book. Analyzing that book and, the concept. And sure enough, a few years later, we got this thing called the internet. And I'm like, holy cow, he nailed it. And, just like you said, you've dialed up to old bulletin boards. You remember what that was like. You wanted to download a program. You'd start the download before you went to bed, and you woke up the next morning and hoped the line didn't drop.
Yep. Yeah.
I did have I think it was a Atari 1200 XL later. And that's when I was really getting into the bulletin boards. That was before I got my Mitsuba. And now I got a 15-year-old son. He actually just came down, I think. We're looking at these. We're holding these iPhones in our hands. With 64 gigabytes of memory. I'm building running 4 virtual computers on my laptop at the same time. A single 50 gigabyte file, and you think about, going back to that little Ape-FACE, taking in a 300 baud stream of data from a computer and taking one bit at a time and moving it out to each memory chip, and then retrieving it, on the printer buffer that was going to the memory chips. And these computers do the exact same thing, on a gigahertz speed level. Almost terahertz now. Where's it going to be in 50 years? It's mind-boggling to think about exponential growth of computers. It's overwhelming.
Yes, indeed. So what haven't I asked you about the digital devices time that I should have? Is there a story you haven't told me or a topic that we haven't discussed?
Oh, boy. Nah, I probably better not get those out on the internet.
Oh, come on. The statute of limitations has passed, I promise.
Let's just say me and my buddy had an elevator key, and we'd go hop on the top of the elevator, and it was a 3-story building, and go up to the roof and hang out.
Nice.
The good old days. No, we did. We had some good times. Actually, I will tell you, here's one interesting story. I had a roommate. I'll leave his name out. He was hurting for money, so I got him a job at DDC, and they gave him a key. And he had put down on his timesheet that he went in on a Sunday. And the lady, we had a lady by now that, did the books. And she asked me first. And said, did he go in on that? I don't know. I don't think so. She said, well, I was here on Sunday. And I never saw him show up. So she confronted him. Of course, he lied about it, and they fired him. He failed out in the mid-quarter. And next thing you know, DDC got broken into. And somebody stole all the computers, busted one of the little block glasses by the door, to make it look like reach around and unlock the door, which we realized was not possible. So it must have been somebody with a key.
Mm-hmm.
And he had disappeared by this time. And so every computer in the office was stolen, and probably some other stuff. So I always remember him talking about a girlfriend he had back home somewhere up northwest. And sure enough, the police found her. Son of a bitch had shipped everything to her.
Huh.
And we got everything back intact.
Wow.
And he went to jail.
Holy cow.
So, imagine every little startup company has a story like that. You try to help the boy out, I felt bad for him, really tried to help him out, and turn around and crap on you. It happens.
No good deed goes unpunished, right?
Yep.
I think this is my last question then.
Okay.
If you could send a message to the Atari 8-bit community that still exists, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
Oh, gosh. Keep it going. Keep it going for the kids. We're all going to be dead one day. And this stuff is not there. It's kids need to know where this stuff came from. My son rolls his eyes every time I start telling a story, but I still tell him. And kids today have very little appreciation when they fire up that iPhone, or fire up that laptop. They have very little appreciation for the people that really busted the tail feathers back in the day to get this industry started. Keep it up.
Yeah, great.
Shoot me a message if you need some chips.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you so much, Richard.
All right, Kevin. Enjoyed it.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are two ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.